Welcome into episode 23 of Just Another Podcast. Oh, this is such a fun episode. I get to sit down and have a chat with the one and only Yvonne Hanson, amazing fashion photographer, YouTuber, developer of film using blood. We don't talk about that in this podcast episode, which I kind of wish I did. I meant to be honest. I just totally forgot. But if you want to see that, go check out her YouTube channel. Yeah, she develops film in blood. It's super fascinating. But we talk instant photography, we talk film photography, even her obsession with plants, and so much more. So sit on back and enjoy episode 23 of Just Another Podcast. Yvonne, how are you? And did I say your name right?
I'm well. You did. Well, it's Yvonne, but...
Is it Yvonne or Yvonne?
I accept both. I say Yvonne, but other people call me Yvonne, and I've never had a problem with it. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on. I'm really excited to kind of chat and pick your brain. And for those that are sleeping under a rock and don't know who you are, why don't you do a quick, short little introduction and talk about yourself. Who the heck are you?
Well, my name is Yvonne Hanson. I am a film photographer from Vancouver, British Columbia. I do a lot of YouTube content, kind of talking about different elements of photography, from the creative process to just random film reviews and assorted gear. And I also post some educational content over on Instagram, where I also post my fashion photography. I do a lot of fashion editorial type stuff, and so you'll see a lot of that as well. Yeah,
great stuff. It's funny thing is, everyone thinks, actually I think I even said this when I messaged you to pitch you this, as being a guest, but you live where everyone thinks I live, which you're in the...
when you said you were in PST, I was like, oh, I wonder if he's in Vancouver.
So, I do live in Vancouver, Washington.
Oh, the other one!
The other one.
Oh. This is my first time meeting someone from the other one.
The other one, yeah. I usually have to do the whole spiel when someone says, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I live in Vancouver, Washington. And they're like, oh, you live in Canada. That's great. I'm like, no. Washington State. Or no, it usually goes Washington, and then they say DC, and I say Washington State, and they say Seattle, and I have to say Portland. Because
that's fair.
Portland's like 5 minutes away. But for a while there, it was kind of like not cool to be like, hey, I'm from Portland. So that was a few years there where I was like, you don't want to say that.
Now it's cool.
Now it's
fine.
If
you say that in this Vancouver, you're like, oh, cool, yeah, I want to do a road trip down there.
Yeah, I've been up there only once. I was hoping to make it up to your neck of the woods this year. I still might try, but I've only been up there once. Come on. Yeah. I know.
Take it around.
Yeah, definitely. Last time I was up there, it was in 2019. Yeah, it was 2018, 2019. It was for a Lego convention. Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't even know we had those.
Yeah, neither did your border control people. I had to have some fun conversations at the border. But that's not what we're talking about today. I want to talk about your work a little bit. You do a lot of fashion photography, and it's amazing. I'm curious to see how you got yourself into that.
So I've always been kind of a very creative visual artist sort of stuff. I do a lot of painting and drawing, or I used to before I found photography. And when I got into photography, I was doing portraits and like lifestyle kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And like that's the stuff that makes money, but it's not the stuff that like gets my blood pumping. Yeah. So I was looking at fashion magazines and realizing like there's this whole genre of beautiful editorial photography that, is completely new to me. And started delving into that as like an outlet for creative expression, and sort of modeled myself after this like editorial photographer that I wanted to attain one day, and here I am. It's very exciting.
That's so cool. And you do obviously digital photography, but you also do film photography along with that, correct?
Yeah, nice. Definitely. I always have like way too many cameras with me, because now I have like 4 formats that I'm shooting in.
Yeah.
That problem too.
Yeah, and I don't know how much you stalked me online or not, it's fine. But I deal with film photography, instant photography, and stuff on my YouTube channel. It's the main bread and juice of the channel.
Yeah, I love to chat in photography.
Yeah, that's what I'm mostly known for. That's kind of where I've positioned myself, is in the instant photography world. But when it comes to like shooting film photography for like fashion, like what are some of your like struggles with that? Like, do you, this is one of the questions, because later we'll be going over a couple of audience questions. So I'm going to I saw one and it actually kind of sparked this conversation, in which I do have a note on my monitor to do my own YouTube video about this. So it's kind of a little preview, I guess, if you will. But when you're shooting fashion photography, I'm imagining you're editing your photos to kind of like, make it, that extra little cherry on top. Are you doing that with your film photography as well? Or are you just shooting it and then putting out what you get?
Oh, no. My film photography, I definitely edit it. I have a slightly different process for editing it, because the images that I get don't go into Camera Raw. I probably could figure out how to do that. So I'll do them a little bit more individually. They're not like a batch kind of thing. A little more of a bespoke curve, like editing with the curve scale and all that. But yeah, no, I definitely edit them. I used to not. I used to be like, oh, I like film photography because I don't have to edit it and it saves time, yada, yada. But honestly, like, my photos turn out better when I take the time to bring them up to the quality that I want. So yeah, no, don't get it twisted.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's cool, because a big topic in like the instant photography world is like, you don't edit your photos, period. You leave them as it is, never touch them. And then even I've talked to a lot of film photographers, like some of my film photographer friends that shoot, like, I know it's weird to say instant photography and then film. It's both film. I get it. People listen. It's the same, but you have to just somehow separate the two. So like 35, 120, that type of stuff. I know a lot of people like think it's still sacrilegious to edit the film, like photos, after you get them and scan them in and everything, and because then they say, oh, it defeats the purpose of shooting them on film to begin with because you're editing them. I don't think I totally agree with that. But
no, I've definitely heard that
I love hearing other people's perspectives on that. So that's really cool. Speaking of instant photography, last time we talked, you said you were kind of dipping your toes into it and wanting to do more of it. Talk to me. Tell me, where are you at?
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun recently with the Instax SQ40, which is like pretty much a point and shoot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have a lot of control. You don't have like a shutter speed control. Pretty much nothing. So it's as bare bones as you can get. Instant photography. You take a shot, it prints out. That's what you get. I had a lot of fun with that. I took it into studio. I did some kind of more creative, fashion-y type lighting setups, and I really tried, because the flash is strong enough to trigger strobe flash, and so you can use like optical snoots and all kinds of cool lighting techniques with it, kind of in like a hacky way, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So that was really like kind of mind-blowing. Oh, instant photography can be fashion, right? And there's a bunch of different trends in the fashion photography world, right? One of them is this kind of lomography look, like lo-fi, the old school Polaroid look, but in a upscale way. And dipping my toes into that, the whole world of photography was very exciting.
That's awesome. Have you dipped your toes into some of the quote-unquote more higher-end instant photography, like cameras and accessories, such as instant backs for medium format cameras and stuff?
I love it. Oh, I love it. No, I want to so bad.
It's so expensive.
Or the new Polaroids with the I know it's so expensive, so it doesn't get any cheaper. Like there's no investment. It's just the whole time. But it looks so nice. It would be so fun.
Yeah. Polaroid i2. That's probably the it is the most expensive Polaroid camera, officially Polaroid, not Instax, but Polaroid camera you can buy, because it's got the full menu controls and stuff. It's pretty fun. I have one. It can be frustrating though, too, because if you miss your shot, guess what? That costs you like $3. So keep that in mind when you step into that world. It's more forgiving when you're in with Instax stuff, because if you mess up your shot, it's like, it's only like 90 cents or whatever. So it's not that bad, you know? But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff.
Someone was talking to you about Mint. Tell me about it.
Yeah, so they're more of like the higher end stuff with Instax stuff. I'm not necessarily a huge fan of them. Their customer service is a little interesting. I've bought a couple cameras from them, which is the Mint RF70, which is $1,000 instant camera, just so you know. I think the official price is like $890, but you have to buy this ND filter pack to basically use the camera, and then which brings it right up to about $1,000. Yeah, that's USD. Yeah,
which should be
exactly.
like
Yeah.
13.50.
So yeah, and I'm on the second
Oh.
one because they've had some quality control issues. But if some people say they're great, I haven't had great, experiences with them. But if it does, if I can get one that does work, it'd be pretty cool because it's a rangefinder camera, and it has control of the shutter speed and aperture and stuff like that. It's interesting. It's really cool. Yeah, it's kind of on the
Built-in light
pricier
meter?
side. Kind of. That's the other thing that I have. It has one, but all you get is a green light and a red light, and it says if you are exposed right or if you are underexposed, and it will kind of tell you if you need an ND filter, what number, like 2, 4, or 8. Those are the two they offer. However, I've messed with the shutter speed, and I've gotten I went from like 100th of a second all the way up to 500th of a second, and it said it was fine. I'm like, that's a huge difference in exposure, so I wouldn't trust it. So,
Oh my god, we're sharing it all. I'm gonna look into this though because that sounds really fun. Sounds extremely expensive, but
very
fun
expensive.
to try out.
Very expensive. They have other ones too that I haven't tried personally, but they've got ones that are TLR cameras, basically. And so, like waist level viewfinder. It's really cool. That one shoots Instax Mini. Oh, and they just came off the square version. I haven't tried them, but those are like $350, $400 cameras. So keep that in mind. Now the best one, the best one to look into, which I haven't personally used because I haven't been able to have the money to buy them. It is cheaper though than the Mints. It's the cameras by Nons, Nons. Interchangeable lens system. It uses it's not Micro Four Thirds. What's the 43 mount or whatever that one is? 4.3 mount. I think it is, and maybe Canon. They have a lens mount. Yeah, so it's pretty cool, but it's like $700 for that camera. But more doable with it, like Instax Square.
Interchangeable lens is really tempting.
It is. It is pretty cool.
That sounds really
cool.
That we were gonna get a wide Evo, or a wide 99 even, like some kind of like really creative wide, and they're like, here is the wide again. It's like, yeah. Thanks. I was actually saving up to buy something a little fancier. Charge me twice as much. I would be happy to pay it for more features.
Exactly. However, I mean, a lot of people were super disappointed with the wide 400, and I was one of them for just a moment. I was like, dang it. But then I'm thinking it's actually a huge deal because they haven't released a wide camera in like 10 years. And so there was worry that they might discontinue the film altogether. And so having them release a wide 400 camera, it's actually good news because that means they're still putting money into that format. And I'd rather have the film stick around than have a new camera, So I think it's still a good thing. True. Even though they stripped out all the features and stuff, the previous one, if you can get one, which they've skyrocketed in price, the 300, the Instax 300 is like going for over $200 these days, American. Which is wild. So yeah. So if you can get one, that one definitely has way more features and you don't mind spending the money. But the 400 I think is still great. It's easy to use. You don't have to worry about anything. You just turn on and shoot. But you have zero control over anything. No exposure count.
And with those wide, like the photos are so expensive. So having no control over anything is like kind of concerning for me. I've seen some results that people have gotten with that camera and they look great.
Yeah.
But it looks very easy to overexpose, which having a big white piece of paper on your wall with like the shadow of a boat or something is not exactly the aesthetic I'm going for.
Right. I've met a bunch of people more recently and like they love the overexposed like look. And I'm like, why? Like, it's interesting. I'm not judging them by any means, but like, I've never been one for that. Like, I like other things, maybe even a little bit slightly under, just to get more colors, a little more contrast in the shadows and things like that.
Richness, moodiness.
Yeah. But then their response is like, no, it looks like a vintage Polaroid picture. And that's the reason that they want to do instant photography. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's an interesting take.
I think too, we're used to seeing old Polaroids that have been bleached by the sun,
sure,
or like old photos in general. And so I think a lot of the things that we associate with like, vintage film is actually just the result of that film aging. Like I've seen a lot of people putting kind of red tones in, like they're like, we want this to look like a film vibe, so they'll like up the red tones in the shadows. And that's just a result of like the actual printed photo aging. So they're used
Yeah.
to seeing that in their parents' scrapbooks or something.
Yeah, exactly. For me, getting into photography, that it wasn't necessarily about the look. It was more about the experience. And it was like I got to live in the moment more because I do photography, video. I'm more on the digital side for like my day job and stuff. And so it was all this setup and all this. It's just nice to be able to pull out a camera and just not think about things too much and just point a picture, and I have a physical, tangible thing that even if it doesn't come out the greatest, I'll still appreciate more than just some random photo on my phone that I'll never look at ever after I post on Instagram stories. So that was me. But
Yeah,
as I've
totally agree.
progressed, like I'm more about like getting like making it look super like, or like the best it could possibly be, and hearing other people's like reasons why it's like, oh, okay. It kind of helps me think, go back a little bit and understand why I even got into it in the first place.
I like it for the hunt, I think, because when you have 1,000 photos available to you, or 10,000, however many your memory card will fit, there's no like challenge to it. It's like having a machine gun and you're hunting with a machine gun. Like, okay, well, you're gonna hit something.
Right.
But when you have only one photo, you got one shot. You got to make it count. And if you don't, you're gonna have to pay for it.
Yeah,
that sucks.
It does.
So it's a lot more like victory when you actually get a shot that you're super proud of. There's like this feeling of like, oh, I succeeded. Like, look at me, the master of the hunt. Look at my 5 beautiful street photos from the 6-hour street photography adventure.
Right. Exactly.
And each one of those represents like a lot of effort.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh. But I remember when I first started, I was just blasting away, machine gunning the photos themselves. And then now I'm like very strategic. It's like, oh, it's one shot. Then I'll move on. Now, speaking of, you said something earlier about, like, I think it was something like a blank white photo on your wall or whatever, in reference to overexposed photos. But you have an awesome photo wall. I see you use as a backdrop for your YouTube videos.
There.
Oh, there you go. See, that's cool. I've always been wanting to do that. This door, actually, this is a door to a closet, which I've been saying this forever. It's kind of become an inside joke on the podcast. Is that like, oh, I just started the podcast and I need to make an official set for it. I've never have. It's just my desk. But I've been wanting to line up photos there of like all the guests that's come on to the podcast, which I have so you can't see on camera, but it's a like a pinup board with everyone's picture. I can convert them to a Polaroid to scan for the thumbnails. So I have physical copies of like, everyone that's been on. I'm like, oh, it'd be cool to have them like in the background. So I've seen your video. That's kind of what or one of your videos I kind of got the inspiration from. I'm like, oh, I gotta do something.
It's a really cool idea.
Now, since you're known online for photography, obviously everything that we've been talking about, super super cool, super awesome, love it. Now, maybe this is something that I think about from time to time, where I put myself out there online, all the time, pretty regularly. I'm reachable. You can reach out to me. I'm available. Talk about instant photography all the time and everything, or photography in general. I rarely get to like talk about other things, right? Like outside of that. So my question to you is like, is there like another hobby, things that you have that you just never get to talk about because it's always been like your photography is just like a cloud above you blocking out that?
Yeah, kind of actually.
Yeah.
I'm quite a gardener. I have a lot of plants. I have a tiny plant collection. Maybe I'll show you that actually.
Yeah, let's see it.
There's a tiny plant collection over there.
There it is. Okay.
There's some really rare species in there. And I used to film so that you could see all my plants in the background. And that was my like kind of subtle way of being like, look, we're horticulturalist.
Yeah.
But now
botanist.
I'm fully into the photography, and I think I'd rather show off my my Instax wall because it's quite an achievement.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely plants. And you'll see a lot of the kind of like one-off shots that I post on my Instagram are just featuring like close-ups of different plants. Because it's a really easy subject when you're testing a film stock and you have like 3 more shots to burn. Well, you can burn them of like the little hairs on a cactus or something.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I have some plants. Most of them died, but I've had one plant survive, and it produced babies. And then it's still alive. I had since 2021, but the other ones all died. So
okay, well, I've got a method. I got a method for you. It's called the trial by fire.
Okay. So
you get a bunch of different plants, and the ones that die, just never buy that kind of plant again. The ones that survive, now you know. So you can get a bunch of varieties of those ones. And I'll tell you, I have a weird plant mom conspiracy. I think when you have more plants, your plants are more likely to survive. I think that they just like having other plants around. So if you start with like 20, you have a much better chance of keeping them alive than if you start with one.
Interesting. Okay. I had like 7 originally when I first, maybe more.
And you killed 6 of them.
Yeah, they're all indoor ones. It said low sun. And then
Right? A lot of fire you're trying to buy.
I know. The one that survived, it was one of those like spider plants, I think they're called.
Nice.
Okay, I don't remember what it was. But when I first got it, it started blooming off like buds and like baby ones, and then so I was like clipping them, putting them in soil and trying to get them to grow, and they never survived. And then I had this other plant that I don't know what it's called, but it was like a hanging one, and it was like really long and dangly, but it's slow. Yeah, kind of like one of those. Yeah. It might be one of those actually, same one. Well, it kept dying.
Probably is, yeah.
It just kept, eventually it was like dying, and then was like watering it. It was like on the last little strand, and then like I was like watering it, and it just fell out of the so I had one extra little bud. I put it in there, and I just took the other that thing that fell out and just shoved it back in the soil. I'm like, wow, that's not gonna work. It totally worked. It's still alive. It came back. It's really slow at growing. It's still around, and then the other one took off. So now, yeah. Technically, I guess I have 3. But 2 of them are in the
trial by fire method right there.
Yeah, but it's 2 of them are in the same like pot because I think that would survive.
Share. They're talk.
Welcome to Plant Talk with Chris and Yvonne.
Oh my gosh, no! I would totally go on a plant themed podcast one day. Share all my weird findings from years of growing so many.
That's awesome. Hey, real quick, I wanted to remind you guys about the members area. Yeah, there are some amazing perks by becoming a member of the Spitfire Club, such as extended versions of Just Another Podcast, and extended versions of YouTube videos, and early access to said YouTube videos, and exclusive monthly signed photos sent to your door, and access to the members' exclusive Spitfire Club t-shirt. But that's not all. There is now an exclusive members-only Zoom call. Yeah, we have our club meeting. We sit down, we chat, we talk about things that we're into, things that we're struggling with, things we want to improve, and special guest appearances from other like-minded content creators. Ugh, it's so much fun. If you want to become a member today, there is a link in the description below. I'll see you in there. Let's reel it back to photography because that's what people are really here for. But I want to at least give the opportunity to talk about some stuff you probably don't normally get to talk about. When did you kind of like start your entry into photography, and then how soon after that did you turn it into a business essentially?
Great question, actually. Yeah, so I started it back in like my 3rd year of university or 4th year of university because I thought, and get this, I thought it would be a good, easy way to make money on the side, like as like a job, which was a real joke because no, it was not. It quickly took over my entire life. Like as soon as I realized that, fashion photography was a thing, I just dedicated my entire life to becoming a fashion photographer.
Yeah.
And completely abandoned everything else that I had going on in my life. And that's not very profitable, like not off the bat. It took years and years and years of building my portfolio and my network and my skills to a point where I could actually make a profit off of it.
Yeah.
So it was about 3 or 4 years of being like a photographer, like really going hard at it before I was able to quit my job and do it full time. Mm-hmm. I've been doing it full time since 2021, April of 2020, 2021 or 2022. Might have been 2022. I'll have to look that up. No, 2021 it was. Sorry. Yeah. So for 3 years. Nice. And it's going well, but yeah, it took a lot of building before I got to that point.
That's so cool. And that is just in the fashion photography world, or just like you do other stuff as well?
I do other stuff. So, this time of year I do a few weddings. I do like six or 7 weddings a year. I do events like conferences and businesses. I have a side job where I take pictures of handbags for a consignment company.
Yeah.
A few little odd jobs here and there, lots of headshots. The fashion stuff is like, twice a year on fashion week seasons. So there's like the summer or fall, I guess, season, which is actually the spring and summer season. And then there's the winter season, which is actually the spring season. I don't know why they name it these ways. But though that's when like the big like fashion, okay, now it's fashion photography all day, every day, like, going really hard in the paint. And then the rest of the year is just odd jobs.
Wow, exciting. And YouTube.
And YouTube, yeah. YouTube is like my one consistent thing that I'm like, cool. If all else fails, I have a backup. YouTube will,
Be there.
I can invest time into this and it will pay dividends.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be there.
Yeah, the idea, at least for my approach, is like, don't have all your eggs in like one basket, so diversify and have multiple revenue sources kind of going in. And YouTube's just like, you don't make a lot of money, but it's there.
Yeah, and it's constant, right? Like,
yeah.
It's, what do you call it? Evergreen content. Like, people will be looking at it.
Yeah.
Stuff that I posted in 2021 that's still like bringing me a couple bucks a month, which is nice. It's reassuring.
No, absolutely. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but in my early days, like when I was trying to find work and stuff with people, like I'd have to have your demo reel, right? Or in photography world, your portfolio that you can show your work. I don't know if you experienced this, but like I've just stopped even bothering creating like my portfolios or my demo reels. I just send people my YouTube channel. It's like, here it is. Watch it. That's my work. And with success. So I don't know if you've experienced anything like that since you started YouTube or whatever.
Yeah, actually, I got a job based on my YouTube channel. It was like a YouTube host gig for the spring. And basically I just sent them my YouTube channel and I was like, okay, you want someone who can talk confidently on camera and who is in a creative field? Here's proof. Here's 2 full years of proof that I can talk confidently and I'm in a creative field. So that was great. But another thing is, like, now that I have more of a following on Instagram, I will just reach out to people, like brands, influencers, whatever, directly on Instagram so that they can see my portfolio just by clicking on my name.
Yeah.
And even when I do emails, I'll be like, here's my portfolio website, or you can find me on Instagram here. Because so many people use that as like a nexus point for seeing what you can actually do in practice.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't got any gigs for specifically instant photography. I've had this idea of like, because here's the funny thing is, I've never considered myself a photographer. I'm videography, or like that side of it, video editor, video world. That's kind of what I do, or live streaming, things like that. And photography was just more of a hobby, like I did it on the side. So I've only done like 1 or 2 weddings in my day, and they were just for like friends. Or whatever, just like as a favor, so I'd shoot their photos or whatever. Right. But I've had this idea of like, oh man, it would be so cool just to be hired to do instant photography at a wedding. Like that's bring me in. I shoot all your instant photography photos.
That's so scary. Oh my god, it's so scary.
Well, no. See, the thing is, I wouldn't be the main photographer. I would just be the like capture all the moments or whatever. Because then at the end of the day, you have photos to take home and look at instead of waiting however long it takes to get your photos back from the quote unquote professional hired photographer, or just like offer
that would be a good sell.
Offer an instant photography package or something. I'm like, oh, that's something, because then I just walk around and it's like no editing.
No editing. Yeah, you just here you go.
Then you go home.
I've seen people offering content creation packages, which is basically they just go around your wedding with like an iPhone and they're taking video clips and they're taking iPhone photos. And so you'll hire a photographer, there's like your second shooter, and then you got your content creator, and the content creator delivers like, next day or whatever.
Right.
I think that's an interesting option for people who have like a big budget for their weddings, just because it gives you something the next day. But the instant one that's a lot more fun than an iPhone.
Oh yeah, and it'd be same day delivery. Here's the box of photos, and then you're on your way. Game over. Move on to the next one, and everyone's happy because then they have a box of photos they can just flip through. And honestly, they probably appreciate those more than the quote unquote professional whatever. Other than obviously like a couple of them, like the main big one of the bride and groom or whatever. But I think they'd have more fun like digging through a box of photos. Yeah, because then they'd be like, I don't know, it'd be a surprise because they wouldn't know what would be in there. I don't know.
I like that. And you can put them in a family album and like display them on the mantelpiece or whatever.
Yeah. Who's ever listening, give me a call.
I tend to offer I tend to offer like film photography as kind of an add-on. There's like this terror of shooting film or weddings on film, but I mean, film is reliable, right? I don't actually find it that scary. But a lot of a lot of couples really like it because you get something that's like super different. You can do some weird double exposures, like, layer the bouquet over the couple kissing, or like have the altar and then layered, and like, there's just creative options that are a step outside what they might expect. And it's always like kind of a pleasant surprise, a few weeks after the wedding when you're like, here's the film photos and here's the digital ones in a month.
But speaking of events, do you go to events often outside of like weddings, this like photography meetups or anything like that? I know there was one in Seattle last month. I wish I got to go, but I didn't get to go.
I would have gone. There's some that the London Drugs by Me does photo walks, and the Camera Store, or local camera store, Bow Photo, does photo walks as well. So I always try and attend those just because it's really fun talking to other people who also love photography. It's kind of like my whole thing, right? So when I'm talking to my friends, I'm just nonstop talking about photography, and I'm like, wow, they're being so polite, but they don't care.
Yeah, tell me about it.
But then at the photo walks, people care.
Yeah, they're like, yes,
know what camera I'm doing
the other weird people like me.
Oh, so nice.
Yeah. I've only been to a handful. I'm pretty introverted, and I kind of, even though I'm put myself online, it looks like I'm very extroverted, but I have extroverted tendencies, I guess. But very introverted, so I never really went to a lot of like those meetups or things. Plus, as crazy as it sounds, and since I live near Portland, there's not a lot at all events here, like at all, for film photography or instant photography or anything like that.
Portland would be like the place.
Right. So I've been kind of wanting to do my own. I've been planning some stuff eventually, probably next year. But this year I was like trying to make it, especially since I've really positioned myself into instant photography as one of the, I hate talking myself up, but one of the quote unquote leaders or top whatever people of that community, or in the creator space, that is. And so I'm like, I really need to go to some of these events. So I went to Polacon. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. There's 3 of them. There's one in San Francisco, Texas, and New York. So I went to the San Francisco one and then the New York one. Won't be able to go to the Texas one, which that's next month. I will be in Japan. Yeah. So I won't be able to go to that one. But the events, they're cool. You get to meet people and chat and talk about all the stuff that you like and realize that there are other people like you out there.
That was actually nice. Last year when I went to New York. The day that I landed, I went to B&H Photo because like that's the Mecca. I always have to go and check it out.
It's a cool place.
And they were like, oh, there's a free event this weekend if you want to come. And they handed me like a form that I filled out, and I got a pass. And so they were having their big Build Expo. And I just kind of walked into it. And it was every camera company, every lighting company, every like printer manufacturer, like everything even remotely related to photography in this giant building, like this huge convention center in New York. And all of the companies had set up little tester booths. So they had a model with like a background and lighting, and you could test their newest camera, you could test this like lighting, setup, whatever. And so the whole thing was just like photo shoot, and there's all thousands of photographers. Oh, it was a dream. Cool. I spent like the full day there. I was just wandering around like aghast.
Oh, that's so cool.
Being among my people, right?
I mean,
and you could talk to anyone about photography and they'll know.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just going to B&H alone is also just its own little treat. I love that place. I've only been once. They just have an $80,000 video camera. Just here you go. You put it in your hands. I'm like, oh wow. But then there's a guard stand next to you, but it's just out in the open. You can just touch it and play with it. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. That's cool.
The lighting, I love the lighting there.
Yeah,
it's like the Home Depot lighting section with the chandeliers, but it's all like
the whole thing.
Photography lights.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And then the little what's it called, the track system for all the packages that are going in and out on the roof or on the ceiling or whatever. Yeah. I'm like, what's that sound? Like, oh, that's just the shipping department. All the stuff being like tossed through. I'm like, wow, that's fun. That's really cool. Or speaking of cameras, what are your like lineup of like, your favorite cameras that you currently are shooting with?
Okay, so I'm not much of a gear person. So the first camera that I got, I chose because my friend was selling a camera. Like there was no thought that went into it.
Yeah.
And so I got a Nikon camera because she was selling a Nikon camera, and I still have Nikon.
Me too.
So I'm a Nikon. Oh, you have a Nikon? Oh,
I have. Yeah.
Wait, what's yours?
Oh, so I have a D810, and then I have a D55, and then I think something else. I can't remember. No, I sold that. My first one was a D3300.
Classic.
Sold it.
Wow.
I don't have that. I have a 55, 5500, and then the D810, which I used 2 days ago for the first time in like 4 years. I hadn't used them forever.
Oh my god.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I've got a D780,
Okay.
and my first one was a D7100. So I still got that. And then my film cameras, I've got a f801S, and now I've got a Yashica Mat 124G, which is like a TLR.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are pretty much with me all the time. I also just finished shooting with the Flick Film Double Shot, which has been with me all summer.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's amazing. It's so much fun. It's like tiny and plastic and
love it.
So easy to just bring everywhere.
Those are my favorite.
Yeah, so I always have like a point and shoot, and then those, the D780, the f801, and the medium format.
That's awesome. My point and shoot that I bring everywhere, which sadly I bring it, but I don't shoot it often. I have it with me. I have a film roll loaded in that thing I loaded it in Disney World. I was at Disney World.
Oh my god!
I was sitting in Star Wars land, and I loaded it last year in February for my birthday. It's been sitting in there ever since, and it has like 15 shots left. I bring it everywhere though, and I keep forgetting to shoot it. But it is. But it is the 35. It's that soda can camera. It's a Coca-Cola, the can camera.
I love those. That's cute.
They're so much fun.
They look
cool. Oh, it produces some killer images. It's pretty fun. But when I shoot it.
When you shoot it, oh my god, shoot it! Wow, I can't do that. If there's like 2 photos left on a roll, I'm taking it out. I'm gonna shoot probably cactus spines or little close-ups of things in the garden. Like there's no way I can't have something sit on my shelf with film in it. I'm like allergic. So
speaking of that, then I just got it developed. I'm collaborating with Nice Film Labs. I think it's called Nice Films. They're in New York. They are a film lab, and they wanted me to just use their services and do a video about it and whatnot about them. And I finally finished the film roll that I loaded in my Yashica. That's how I pronounce it. I don't know if that's how you said something different, but I call it Yashica.
Everyone says it different.
Yeah, I call it the Yashica D. I think I called it Yashica in the video I did on it back in 2020. But I call it Yashica D now. But I loaded that also in Disney World of last year in February, and I finished it the other day and got it developed. And so that was fun. And then,
that's exciting. At least you get to get a little surprise there, blast from the past.
Yeah, and then I also earlier this year finished a roll of 35 that was loaded in my Nikkermat EL. They went back a while, like at least a year and a half. I don't know when I got to develop, but I've since then shot like at least a couple of rolls through it since then. I had it developed. I did some, actually it's right here. It was not playing, but I was sent the silver screen negative film from Mr. Negative.
Wait, pull that up again. Give me a little rotation of the box.
Let me go a little full screen for you.
Oh yeah.
This guy, his name is Gareth, I think his name is. It's repackaged, obviously. It's Kodak. I can't remember what he said it was. But he does a chemical process of his own to give it its own look. It's pretty cool. But yeah, so I shot some of that through my Nikkermat recently. That stuff's pretty cool. But that was very expensive to develop. I don't develop my own film yet, so that was like $40 to get developed.
What's the process on that one?
It's ECN 2 or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, ECN 2.
I hate that. I have like 4 rolls of ECN, and I did not realize that it was going to be so expensive to develop it. Because I was sent them. I was sent like 8 rolls of ECN, and I'm like, oh great, 8 rolls of free film.
Yeah.
Started shooting them. Went and looked at online, and it's $35 a roll to get them developed. And I was like, oh my god, I'm going to go bankrupt on this one brand deal.
Yeah.
So,
right?
we'll see. When that video comes out, you'll know that I paid dearly for it.
Reach out to Nice Lab, or I should know them. I'm working with them. Pretty sure it's called Nice Films.
They're in New York, you said, right?
Yeah, they're in New York.
City?
Maybe they'll work with you on some
Okay.
a collaboration of some kind. Maybe help you out developing.
Well, I'm going to be heading to New York in like a week, so
Oh,
I could just bring my film to them.
Yeah, I think they partner up with Brooklyn Film Camera. So I think if you go to either Brooklyn or Nice Films, they will be the ones developing it. Speaking of Brooklyn Film Camera, I'm sure you know who they are. But
I actually haven't been to their physical location,
but you know of them though.
I know of them.
Yeah. So Kyle, the guy that owns it, he's gonna be on the podcast coming up soon. He's really cool. I met him at Policon earlier this year for the first time. He's a really nice guy.
Well, I'll be paying them a visit.
Yeah, he's
paying them a visit.
Fantastic. Well, he might not be there by the time you get there, because I told him, or I asked him if you want to be on. He's like, hey, I'm going to Burning Man, so I'll have to be after that. I think that's like next week or in a week or so.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
We'll go off. That sounds fun.
Yeah. But yeah, he's a really cool guy. I think I wanted to pick his brain because I'm a little fuzzy on the details, but I believe he had a hand in the Impossible Project, if you know about that, the Impossible Project, which is Polaroid.
That's ringing a bell, but I don't remember it.
So when Polaroid went bankrupt, a company swooped in and saved a factory that produced Polaroid film in the Netherlands, and then they bought it and created the Impossible Project to bring back or keep Polaroid film going, but they had to like reinvent the wheel. That was in 20 I don't know, like 15 years ago or something like that. And so then they start from scratch, but they have the factory, so they kept that. And then they eventually became Polaroid Originals in 2016, I think it was. 2015, 2016. And then in 2020, they are now just Polaroid. But it's not, Polaroid today is not Polaroid of the yesteryears. It's a completely different company. Polaroid.
News to me, man.
Yeah.
Look this up. That's a cool story.
Mm-hmm. Polaroid went under in 2008. And I believe they were still shortly producing film for like 6 months after they went under, kind of deal. And then that was it. They were done. And they've never come back, technically.
What up? I didn't know that at all. I'm going to look that up. That's like a fun story to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And yeah, Impossible Project, they purchased the name Polaroid. So that's why it was a Polaroid Originals, because it was like the way around it a little bit.
Most film companies now are not owned by the people who own them originally. Like, every time I look up like the history of a new film, it's always like, oh, and then this merger, and then this split, and then the employees rebought this half of the company, and so this half of the company is. It's weird. Like except Kodak, I think every single other company that I can think of has been
Fuji, Kodak,
shifted around a bunch.
And
even parts of Kodak, I think, have been sold off.
That I don't know. Did you know about the Kodak Instant stuff? The history of that?
Wait, no. What? Oh, tell me.
The largest U.S. Lawsuit of all time was Polaroid suing Kodak, because Kodak was briefly producing Polaroid film as a partnership for them to help them get stuff out. And meanwhile, they decided to release their own instant film.
Oh God, that's scummy. That's so shady.
Yeah, and so Polaroid had a patent on some stuff, and then Kodak. It was a whole thing. It was. I think Kodak might still be paying for it, like literally to this day. This was in the 80s.
Oh my God.
I think they're still making payments to the state or whatever. I could be wrong on that though. Don't quote me on that.
Sophisticated technology,
I can't remember the exact. Yeah. And so I actually
come up with on your own,
And then during the whole lawsuit and stuff, they continued to produce film and cameras for like years before it finally went to court and they were told to stop.
What's going on with Fuji too, right? Because Polaroid is suing Fuji. I think they've been suing Fuji since like 2017, like whenever the release of the square format happened.
Interesting. I've heard this.
There's been no updates on that lawsuit. I looked for it, and it hasn't been withdrawn, but it hasn't progressed at all.
That's interesting because they partnered. Because Polaroid made here's a fun thing. Polaroid made an Instax mini camera, 2 of them. Did you know that? That shot Instax mini film, but it wasn't called Instax mini film. It was called Polaroid 500 film, maybe 300 film. Might have been 300 film. But it was Instax film. That was in collaboration. Like 10 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. But the camera is like the Polaroid 300. And then there's the Polaroid, which I still don't know how to pronounce it. Mio or Mio. It's MIO. That shoots Instax mini film. So that's interesting to hear. I haven't heard about that lawsuit.
I think it was 2017.
Interesting.
Don't quote me on that, but look it up after, because if it was, then it might have been shortly after they had that collab, which is even shadier.
Yeah, it's weird stuff in the instant world.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into this. Is like I'm smelling some tea here. I'm gonna look into some of this tea.
Definitely
I didn't know about that.
Definitely look up the Kodak incident.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and so if you're lucky enough, you can still find some film for the Kodak camera. It's really rare. All of it's expired. I think the best stuff you could get is like 1986, maybe, that type of thing. And I actually got a pack. And a friend of mine found one at an antique store for like $10. And so I had one camera that's been on my shelf forever. I was like, can you convert it to shoot Instax mini film or square film, excuse me, because it can be done. And never got around to it. So I put that film in there and shot it, and it got full chemical spread. It wasn't dry, but nothing worked. So I don't know if the camera's broken. It might be. So I need to track down a working camera.
Horrible.
I know, because there has been some people that have gotten it to work. Like they've found some film, and it's like really brown, but like it still works, and so it's pretty interesting.
What an odd reason to lose the photo too.
Yeah.
Like,
and the film is so
works,
yeah, and it's so interesting too. It's super thick. It feels like not quite as thick as like a credit card, but just slightly thinner, but not by much. And it's like smooth on the top. It's so weird. It's really cool. It's like wide. It's awesome film. I wish it could be still a thing, but sadly it can never be. Yeah, right now I'm wrapping up a video for I went to the TWA hotel and shot photos there. I don't know if you've ever been there in New York.
No.
Okay, so you're going to New York. You have to check it out. It's free. Okay. It's at the airport. It's at JFK Terminal 5 TWA hotel.
Okay. TWA hotel?
Yeah, so you're familiar with TWA Airlines by chance? They're a defunct airline. They were the very first airline ever. Them and Pan Am were like the first two, ever. And so they went defunct in like 2001, I think. And which I just learned in this video, so you're getting a little insight. But anyway, so the terminal that they used back in the day, it's never been demolished. It's still there, and they just turned it into a hotel. But it's all vintage. It's like 60s vibes. The architecture is stunning. Absolutely beautiful, breathtaking building. I can't even describe it. It's so cool. And then, but now they have like photo ops like everywhere, like set up. There's a twister room where it's just like this wall of twister, and you just take photos in there, and it's pretty cool. And then there's a plane on their tarmac, so you're looking out the window, which used to be the actual tarmac, but they have a plane out there that you can go out and go in, and it's a bar.
What?
It's cool. You gotta check it out.
Last time I had like 3.5 hours that I was at JFK waiting for my luggage. I could have gone there. That sounds really cool. Okay, well, I'll know that for next time.
Yeah.
I have another really tight turnaround, so I suspect I'll lose my luggage again. Okay, Terminal 5. I hope that one day an airline really messes something up and has to comp one night for me staying at the airport. I hope it's that airport. But put that out into the universe.
Put it in the universe, yes. Or you get sponsored or whatever, and you can just use the budget.
Yeah, that'd be all right. That'd be actually even better.
Right?
For me.
It's pretty cool. Before we wrap up, let's go over some quick audience questions, just a handful. We got one here courtesy of NopTop, friend of mine, YouTuber. Shout out to you, Dave. He's asking, can you explain how you create the double exposure images used on your SQ40? Because it doesn't have that feature.
All right.
Right?
It doesn't have that feature.
Yeah, how'd you do that?
So there's 3 different techniques that I used for that. And I'm looking at the SQ40 images right now so I can remind myself. The first one is a prism filter in front of the lens. So I was experimenting with the filters by SZ Filters recently. They've got like a kaleidoscope one. They've got like all kinds. So I was holding those up in front of the lens and just like crossing my fingers. And then it did work for a few of them. One of them is an optical snoot and then covering the light sensor so that it thinks it's super, super dark, like pitch black. So it'll crank down the shutter speed all the way, the absolute lowest, which I think is like 1/20th of a second or something. It's low enough that you can get like a nice drag. And then having the flash go off, directing the flash with my hand up so that it hits the sensor on my light, but not the subject. And then so like 1, 2, 3, click, and dragging it as fast as I can. And so then you get the optical snoot is selecting a piece of light that's frozen, and then the rest of it is all continuous LED lights, so that gets dragged, and it has that double exposure look.
Wow, that's intense. Now, for those at home that don't know, what's a snoot?
A snoot is a little attachment that goes on the end of a light, and there's all kinds. There's really cheap ones that are just like, it's basically just a funnel that takes the light and funnels it down into a little point. There's an optical snoot, which has a lens on the end, and that allows you a lot more control over how that light gets funneled. You can put little things in front of it called gobos or cookies. It's like a go-between. And the one that I used for the photos in question is a line. So it just projects a line of light onto the eyes. It's like a really trendy look. You've definitely seen like studio photographers using these snoots. You know, they'll select like a little heart over the eye for their Valentine's Day special or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's all optical snoots.
Nice. Now, is that different from like a Fresnel type deal?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know much about Fresnel lenses. No, I don't use them very much except for like on my outdoor kit, which just has a Fresnel lens because it's cheap. But yeah, it's like an actual camera lens that it's focusing it through. It's like a 1.8 something. It's 50 millimeter 1.8 aperture.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. That's cool. I learned something new myself. Love it. Brian 367, a little dyslexic there. What are your thoughts on, after we already kind of already answered this, but what are your thoughts on editing your film photos? So that I think you were pro editing.
I actually saw, pro. I saw a really good take on Reddit recently where somebody had posted a picture and they're like, is it cheating to put a filter on this photo? And somebody had replied being like, it's not a competition. It's not a sport. Like, if you're getting the result that you want, then go for it, which totally agree. As long as you're disclosing that you're editing the photos, which, you know, I always pretty much do. Like, here's the unedited and here's the edited whenever I do the film reviews. Otherwise, it's like, you know, I don't want you to expect to get this photo right out of the roll. That would be a bit dishonest, but no, go for it.
Go for it. Yeah. I say that too. Go for it. Me personally, I don't do it often. I mean, it's rare instances where I'll do it. I have, but it's something simple as like, there's this one little piece of like, you wouldn't even notice it. Only I would notice it in the corner of my image. I'll just airbrush it out to take that little piece out, you know, that type of thing.
It's so hard not to. It's so
I know. I'm like, I could do that. It'd be so much better. But I try not to, just for instant photography. Film photography, I don't know. I've never really, I haven't really done that either there.
People don't like it for the same reason. Yeah, it's probably really similar.
Very similar. All like, they're like, it's not like, I don't know. I feel for our community is, so like film photography is huge right now. There's a lot of people now in the instant photography it's under that umbrella, but it's very small. It's much smaller community. And I feel like the more people that get into it can only, help, right, the community. More money's flowing through these companies. That means they're going to stick around. It helps us because we have more film and more cameras and all that sort of thing. And everyone gets into the hobby or the craft, if you will, for different reasons. Kind of like we talked about in the beginning of this podcast. Everyone has their own reason for wanting to do this. And I feel like if somebody just wants to get into this to have a physical copy of a photo, go for it. Love it. That's awesome. And so with the Evo, I feel people just are very narrow-minded and they don't think about bigger picture stuff. And I've gone off on tangents about that in the past, about people. I'm like, just if you want to create your own art the way you want to, go ahead and do it.
That's what it comes down to, right? It's like, it's art making, and who's to, like, I can impose restrictions on how I make art, but certainly some guy on the internet is not going to impose restrictions on how I make art, like, and tell me that my art is worth less because I used a certain camera or a certain technique or a certain combination of digital analog hybridness. Like, no, I made some cool art. Like, that it's art. I'm sorry. It's going to stay art no matter what.
Yeah.
There's no cheating around it.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually do at least one photo contest a year, and last year I allowed an Evo as an acceptable camera because it is a instant camera, and people were like, "Nah, it's not cool. Everyone's just going to cheat." I'm like, "What do you mean cheat? They can submit all they want. It's a community voting contest." And really vote most.
Yeah. Okay, good point. Like, good luck. Unless they're actually just like printing something out on the Evo, but I mean, even then.
Yeah, even then, I don't know. I think it's only a plus. It's just an extra tool in your quiver of creativeness, I feel. So that's
Totally.
that. Carrie Susan asks tips on distributing zines. I don't know if you do zines at all.
Good one. I have tried to do a zine. I have really tried. There
Okay.
was one year where we had bad weather. We had like an insane heat dome, and then we had like a hurricane and like a crazy rain event and a deep freeze, all in the same. Oh, and smoke. There was like crazy forest fire smoke, all in the same year.
We get those too.
And so I made a zine. Yeah. You probably were hit by a lot of it. I made a zine called A Year of Bad Weather, and it was just street photos from each of these. Like,
that's cool.
I know, it was really good. I really should have distributed it. I did not. There was a zine library nearby. That was one option. And then I was out of options. I don't know how to distribute a zine.
Yeah.
I wish I had better tips for you. If you have tips for me, I'd like to hear them.
I mean, mine are not much better than yours other than create a YouTube channel, grow an audience, sell to the audience. that's
the way to do everything, right?
But yeah, because it's good timing. Maybe they saw my post because I re-released one of my zines I made a couple of years ago. As of a couple days ago was the final cutoff date to put in the order. But outside of just doing what I just said or what you said, just go to local, photo meetups or events. Sometimes photo galleries or like art galleries will accept zines like on tables and stuff. And if you happen to be in California, and you go to Eagle Rock Camera, run by Jason Lee, the actor / professional skateboarder. He owns a photography store. If you don't know, he's my number one get for this podcast. I've met him once. He said he would be on here and he gave me his information and I've messaged him and he's not responded. But anyway, that's the update for people. But if you go to his shop, he has a huge library. Well, I shouldn't say huge, but he has a big section of his store dedicated to zines and photo books. And it sounds like you can just walk in with your like single copies and then just leave them. So that's an option for other stores. Talk to your other camera or photography shops. I think Brooklyn Film Camera, because I was there, they had a section too. Not a very large one, but a decent sized one. I think you can just leave them. I don't know. That's another option.
All right. Well, I'm feeling inspired because I do have a little collection that I'd like to make a zine out of.
Yeah.
But given how poorly I performed with the last one, I've been hesitant to invest much time in it. But
it's tough because once you spend all that time making it, and then you have to sell it, and you realize you have to put a huge price tag on it because the cost of making them it's pretty high. And so then you're like, oh, it's like $40 or whatever to make it. Well, I want to make money on it, so now I gotta put like $80 on it. And no, $80, who's gonna buy that? And so, it's not necessarily $40 to make them, but it can be depending on how you do them. The one I released, I think I was making like maybe $10 per book. I think it was through Blurb, which you can do like single ones.
Yeah.
You can do like one-offs, which is nice. So you don't have to do like 100 minimum orders like a lot of these places. So you can do as many as you want. So it's down to just one copy. And then let's do them as pre-orders, and then yeah. So that's my 2 cents. I think you should at least make them, at least just for yourself. That's how I did it to start with. I want to do it for myself.
Well, I've been doing like art fair kind of things where I'll go and set up a table with like some prints and stuff and kind of selling prints. I've got like some little postcards that I give out that put my information on them. It's not like a profitable thing, but it's the kind of thing that makes me feel good about myself as an artist, which I think is like profitable in a different way.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, having some like zines and photo books available just for that kind of stuff, I think would be worthwhile. And then I can, watch people look through them and enjoy them and feel good about myself as an artist.
The validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, look at me, a gallery.
Exactly. Last one. Caitlin Lars says, what's your favorite film type to shoot?
Whoa. Okay, good question. I really like Aurora 800. It's a flick film product.
Okay.
I recently tested a bunch of the 800 ISO color film stocks that are available, and Aurora 800 is one of the best ones. I can tell you that. So I have a bunch of that, and I love it. I also really like the Electra 100, which is Kodak Aerocolor 4. Sold by Flick Film. It's just a really high fidelity film stock. Like, it's got beautiful detail. The green tones are phenomenal. Actually, just the color fidelity in general. And it's got a really wide exposure latitude. Like, it's metered. It's the box speed is 100. I shot it in Japan at night in like Shibuya, and I got some beautiful pictures of like the
Wow.
neon lights in the dark and like in the dark.
Wow.
So yeah, huge props to Electra 100. But honestly, yeah, if I only had one roll that I could shoot for the rest of my life, it would probably be Aurora 800, just because you've got that really nice low exposure latitude with the 800 ISO option.
Wow. That's awesome. I haven't shot that stuff before. I'll check it out.
You got and they're Canadian, so their prices are in CAD, which is beautiful, and it'll be cheaper for you.
I was gonna say
your money.
My money's better.
Yeah. No, that's great. You should shop Canadian. Flick Film's like my favorite film company right now.
Shipping though, that's where we get hit though. We get hit with there because I've bought some stuff there before.
Well, if you come to Vancouver, regular Vancouver,
I'm only
the one you guys got down there.
I think I'm 5 hours away from Vancouver, maybe 4.5.
That's so much further than no. Vancouver, Washington's that far away?
Yeah, we're on the border.
I thought it was like close to Seattle.
Oh no! So yeah, Vancouver is literally at the bottom of Washington. So there's the Columbia River that separates Oregon and Washington. That's where we are. I'm on the river. Yeah.
Okay, well I see why. I thought it was like 2.5 hours.
Oh no, I'd be up there all the time if that was the case.
I know. I was like, how are you only been here once? Okay, yeah, 5 hours. That's actually fair.
I've only done it once. You haven't been to Portland at least? You haven't been to Portland?
I've been to Portland one time, but it was like a 12-hour road trip. I can't remember why it was 12 hours though. Yeah, it doesn't seem right. But
you can get from where I live. I can go all the way to. That's like to Los Angeles from where I live.
Oh, shut up! That's cool. Oh my god, I'm jealous.
Yeah, well, maybe not quite. Maybe it's like 13.
A Los Angeles road trip.
Yeah,
it's 36 hours from here.
What?
Like, how much do I value my sleep? Actually, not that much. Like,
I don't know how that maths, but before we wrap up, is there being a YouTuber as well as on the Instagrams? Do you have any? Okay, let me back up a little bit because I kind of want to start a new thing when I bring on other content creators. I want to ask their recommendations for other content creators that people should be going and checking out, visiting. And I think that's something that more people should do. Help each other out. Spread the word. So, do you have any top recommendations for photographers and YouTube content creators? Shoot them.
I got to say, so there's two guys who I work with a lot here. There's Darren, who runs Learn Film Photography, and he does these really like in-depth explorations of different film-related topics. He develops all his own film. He owns a Hasselblad. He's like top-tier film guy, TM. But his content is like fantastic. Yeah, and it's really underrated. Like I'm surprised because so much, like every time I watch one of his videos, I learn something new. Other guy is Dimitri. He runs Analog Cafe. It's a blog, and he'll do the same kind of thing, like look into like really, really in-depth topics to do with film photography. He does a lot of Polaroid stuff. He recently did one where he's like sun bleaching the Polaroids. It was pretty neat. Made a gingerbread camera that takes Instax film.
I think I saw that, like, actually.
Really it's good. It was featured on CBC, and then we ate it. I saw it. And it was really sketchy to eat it, but we did.
That's awesome.
I won't say it tasted good.
I wouldn't think
it tasted
so.
like too much old gingerbread, but. And then the third guy would be Jamie Maldonado down in Texas. He just started a community darkroom project where people come in and drop off their film, and he kind of collaborates with the community, teaches people how to use film. And he also runs a YouTube channel where he tests out different film stocks. He is a 100% film photographer. So a lot of his work is, really, really beautiful, high fidelity stuff. I think he shoots a lot of medium format. So yeah, he's definitely another one to check out if people are interested in exploring what's possible in the realm of film.
That's cool.
You got to come to Vancouver sometime. And if you do, to our Vancouver, and if you do, there is a camera show in October and in April. And so we were talking about the value of going to camera shows and events and stuff. So come by for that. You might find your little Kodak Polaroid.
Yeah, never know. That would be pretty cool. Yeah, I need to go back up there because the one time I was up there, by the time I got home, I had realized or discovered one of my favorite TV shows of all time. I just drove right by one of their like filming locations. And
Which show?
Psych. I don't know if you ever watched that show. It's great. It was on USA. It's about this guy. He's not really a psychic, but he solves crime with his best friend. And it's kind of like a live action Scooby-Doo / Scream.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
It's fun. It's a really good show. But yeah, they film up there, right there in, is it, I might be saying it wrong, but White Castle Rock, White something. It's on the river. White Rock.
There's big White Rock there. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the quote psych office that they work out of that's the filming location is like right there on the water. But all right, let's probably should wrap this up, at least the recording part of it. Appreciate you coming on. For those that need to go get their fix of more of Yvonne, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube at Yvonne Hanson. That's my channel name. Or on Instagram at yhanson_photography.
Fantastic. I'll leave links in the description. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I might have you back on. Maybe a live stream. That'd be fun.
I would do a lot. Totally. I'll say so much stupid stuff.
Love
really
it.
Embarrassing.
I say weird stuff and people love it.
Perfect.
Man, I could talk to Yvonne like all day. That was so much fun. I need to make a trip up to the other Vancouver and do a collab with Yvonne. I have a feeling this won't be the last time we see Yvonne on the channel or even maybe the podcast. Loved her insights on editing film photos. I'd love to know what your guys' thoughts are. Leave some comments. Let's chat. Let's continue the conversation. And thank you so much for listening and watching, because yes, this podcast is in video form as well as audio form over on Spotify and YouTube. Plus, there is always that extended version over in the Spitfire Club, aka Patreon. Help support the channel. And if you want to follow Yvonne on her epic journey and just see what she's cooking up, consider checking out the links in the description to all her socials. And now, get out there, make some art.